A man walks into a courtroom and swears under oath that he is not friends with journalists, that he never socialized with them, and that when he found out a woman in his circle was a reporter, he cut her off immediately, full stop. That same man, in a Facebook message he personally wrote, told that same reporter, and I need you to hear exactly what he said, "I wish I was there, sugar, but unfortunately stuck in Cornwall doing army stuff. Otherwise, I would have been there playing and then drinking you under the table, Obvi." Drinking her under the table, Obvi. That message was read aloud in the High Court in London on Tuesday, and while it was being read at that exact moment, Harry was standing on a stage in Washington, D.C., giving a paid keynote speech about privacy. His name on that Facebook account? Mr. Mischief. No, I am not making any of this up. Welcome back, my Royal Rogues. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Royal Rogue, and today we are talking about the most spectacular own goal in the history of British courtroom drama. But quick recap for anyone who missed Act 1. Earlier this year, Harry walked into the High Court in London to testify in his civil lawsuit against Associated Newspapers Limited, the publisher of the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday. The lawsuit claims these newspapers use illegal methods to obtain private information about him. Wiretapping, phone hacking, unlawful information gathering, that is the core allegation. Now, the foundation of Harry's whole argument, and this is the critical piece, is that the journalists at these papers had no legitimate access to his life. He was not friends with them, he didn't talk to them, he didn't socialize with them. So the information they published could only have come from illegal sources. That was the claim. And in January, Harry sat in that witness box and was asked specifically about one journalist. Her name is Charlotte Griffiths. At the time in question, she was the deputy diary editor at the Mail on Sunday. Today, she is the paper's editor-at-large. Harry's answer about the relationship was clear. He said he had met her once, one time, at a party. And the moment he found out she was a journalist, he ended all contact. He told the court he had words with his friends about it, and his words, that was that. Those were his words. Except it really wasn't. But let me walk you through the actual timeline because the details here are outrageous. This starts in 2011. Harry is at a party hosted by his close friend, film producer Arthur Landon. This is the one meeting Harry admitted to court. Okay, fine. He was there, he met Charlotte Griffiths, and then, here is what he left out. That same night, Harry personally gave her his private phone number. And then, he added her as a Facebook friend under a pseudonym. He called himself Mr. Mischief. I need you to hold that detail in your mind for a moment. Mr. Mischief. So this is a man who stood in front of a high court judge and said he did not know this woman. And the username he chose for his secret Facebook account was Mr. Mischief. That is not the profile of someone who cut contact. That is the profile of someone who was deliberately keeping a connection alive while making sure it stayed off the radar. So, December 4th, 2011, Harry messages Griffiths on Facebook. And because he's thoughtful, he introduces himself. He writes, "It's H," in case you were confused by name and picture. And he puts a kiss at the end. Charming. Absolutely charming. This is the man who told you he had nothing to do with journalists. And then a few days later, after what appears to have been a weekend party, they exchange more messages. Griffiths call him Mr. Mischief, and she referred to their fun weekend of naughtiness. She signed off with smooches. Harry described that weekend as, and these are his exact words, without doubt, the best of those weekends I've been to. He said he had never laughed so much in 24 hours. Okay? And then December 15, Harry messaged Griffiths again, 11 days later, to tell her that she had missed a good party last night. He reached out, unprompted, to tell a journalist about a party. The journalist, he said, he had immediately stopped talking to. And then we arrive at January 22nd of 2012. This is the message that stopped the courtroom. Griffiths wrote to him first, calling him H-Bomb. That was her nickname for him, telling him they had all missed him at Arthur's party the week before. And Harry wrote back. I am going to say this carefully because this is what the court heard on the final day of an 11-week trial. Harry wrote, "I wish I was there, sugar, but unfortunately stuck in Cornwall doing army stuff." So he called her sugar. And then, otherwise, I would have been there playing and then drinking you under the table, Avi. And then at the end, hope you're really well, Griff. Miss our movie snuggles. All right, movie snuggles. Well then, he signed off with multiple X for kisses and wait for it. Mwah. Now, I want to be very precise about what I'm saying, about what I'm not saying. I am not saying that those messages prove anything beyond what they show. People have warm friendships, people flirt. That is normal human behavior. That is not the issue. The issue is that this man went into a high court, sat in a witness box, placed his hand on a Bible, and described a relationship that does not resemble these messages in any way. He said he met her once, cut contact, and that was that. And then a string of Facebook messages turn up that begin with her calling him H-Bomb and end with him missing their movie snuggles. So let me explain why this matters in the context of the actual lawsuit, because the legal stakes here are significant. Harry's case rests on a specific argument. He says the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday could not have obtained information about his private life through any legal means. Therefore, they must have obtained it through illegal means. That is the engine of everything. No legitimate access, therefore illegal access. And here's what the newspaper's lawyers are now in a position to say. They didn't need a hacker. They never needed a hacker. They had Charlotte Griffiths, a journalist who was personally exchanging messages with Harry, who was attending the same parties, who received his private phone number directly from him, who was embedded in the social circle that Harry says was entirely off limits to the press. She was not an intruder. She was invited. His own Facebook messages are the newspaper's defense. Now think about what that does to the case. Harry's question has always been, how would they know where I was? How would they know who I was with? How would they know what was happening at his private weekends? And his answer was illegal surveillance. The newspaper's answer is now, because Charlotte Griffiths was there, because she was in your phone, because you told her yourself. And this is the part that I keep returning to. Harry didn't simply fail to mention this friendship. He actively denied it. In January, under oath, he said, I am not friends with any of these people. Those were his words. And then the Facebook messages appear. So, the judge in this case, Mr. Justice Nicklin, now has to weigh everything Harry said in that witness box against the documentary record. He has said he will be, and I love this phrase, toiling away on the judgment full time after Easter. And while I am not a lawyer and I am not in the business of predicting verdicts, I will say this. When a witness makes a claim in court and that claim is directly and specifically contradicted by written evidence the witness created, that is not a footnote. That is a credibility crisis. And credibility is everything in a case built almost entirely on the personal testimony of the claimant. Let's talk about where Harry physically was on March 31st, while all this was unfolding in London. Harry was in Washington, D.C., standing on the main stage of the IAPP Global Summit. The IAPP is the International Association of Privacy Professionals. This is the world's largest annual gathering of privacy law, AI governance, and cybersecurity experts. 5,000 professionals, a serious credentialed event. And Harry, that Harry, was a headline speaker. He told the audience he had spent the past 7 years in litigation against free media organizations in the UK. He spoke about digital surveillance, about the right to control your own information, about how individuals need protection from powerful institutions that gather data without consent. He said the challenge ahead is significant and demands our full attention. And I want to be fair. Privacy is a real issue. Digital surveillance causes real harm to real people. That cause is legitimate. I am not mocking the cause. What I am unable to stop laughing at is the specific timing. At the exact hour that Harry was on the stage in Washington telling 5,000 privacy professionals about the violation of his personal information, at that exact hour, a courtroom in London was reading aloud his Facebook messages to a journalist he claimed not to know. Messages where he called her sugar, where he talked about weekends of naughtiness, where he said he missed their movie snuggles and signed off with a mwah and a fistful of X. The Sausage Squad is going to say, those messages prove nothing. He was just being warm. Maybe the friendship was innocent, and you know what? Maybe it was. That is entirely possible. But here's the problem with that defense. If the friendship was innocent, why did he not admit it in court? If all it was a casual friendship with some cheeky messages, why did he sit under oath and describe someone he was calling sugar as a woman he had met exactly once and never spoken to again? You cannot have it both ways. Either the friendship was harmless and you should have disclosed it honestly, or the friendship was significant enough that you felt you needed to hide it. Those are the only two options, and right now the record shows a man who denied one and was caught doing the other. So there's a pattern here, and I have been watching it for a long time, and these messages are the latest chapter. Harry has constructed an entire public identity around a single narrative. He and his family were pursued, surveilled, and destroyed by a British press that had no legitimate access to his life. Everything flows from that story. The memoir, the Netflix series, the speeches at the United Nations, the lawsuits, the privacy summits. It is the organizing principle of his post-royal existence. And every single time that narrative is subjected to actual scrutiny, every time it encounters real documentary evidence, something strange happens. The evidence does not match the story. He said the tabloids had no legitimate sources close to him, but Charlotte Griffiths, who was in his phone, invited by him. He said he never befriended journalists, but Mr. Mischief was messaging one of Facebook, talking about the best weekends of his life. He said the press invaded his private moments without his knowledge, but his own messages show him sharing those moments, sending his personal number, attending the same parties, reminiscing about evenings together the morning after. None of that makes the British tabloid press a collection of angels, I must say. They are not. Some of what Harry has alleged about illegal practices may well be true. Courts in the UK have found against newspapers on exactly this grounds before. But when the person making the allegations is repeatedly found to have shaped the facts to fit the story, when the testimony doesn't survive contact with the documents, you have to ask a serious question. How much of this lawsuit is genuinely about justice and how much of it is about something else? My word is control. Control of the narrative. Control of the historical record. Control of what the world believes about who he was before Meghan and who he became after. Because right now, what these messages reveal is not just a contradiction in testimony. They reveal a version of Harry that he was never allowed the public to see. A Harry who was relaxed, funny, flirty, socially embedded, a Harry who was, by his own description, having the best weekends of his life with a group that included journalists. A Harry who called a female reporter sugar and meant it warmly. That Harry and the Harry who wept before high court judges about the trauma of press intrusion are very hard to reconcile. And the judge is going to have to try. What I keep coming back to at the end of all this is, it is not the messages themselves. People flirt on Facebook. People have warm friendships with people they later find awkward to explain. That is human. That is life. What I cannot move past is the choice Harry made in that witness box. Because you can spin a Netflix documentary exactly the way you want it. You can write a memoir and control every word. You can give speeches at privacy summits and frame the entire narrative in your own terms. But in a courtroom, boy, the documents don't take direction. The Facebook messages don't care about the story you're selling. They just say what they say. And what they say is, I wish I was there, sugar. Miss our movie snuggles. Roger Rogues, I want to hear from you. Does this change how you see the case? He bet it does. Does it change how you see Harry's testimony? Let me know in the comments, because I have a feeling this conversation is just getting started. And speaking of Harry and his curious relationship with self-awareness, next time we're going to be looking very closely at that IAPP privacy speech that he gave in Washington, because something happened on that stage that tells us a great deal about where Harry's head is right now. And trust me, it is a lot. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Roger Rogue. Much love and bliss.